Medical Talk Time. I'm your host, Usha Kumar. I have with me a wonderful guest, Nancy Guberti. She is a biomedical nutritionist. And shortly, she will let you know what that is all about. And we are going to talk about the ever-changing food labels and all of the GMO foods that we need to avoid. So please join me in welcoming Nancy. Nancy Guberti, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy you agreed to come here and talk about this topic of the ever-changing food labels. Even just recently, the government announced there's going to be a change in food labeling, right?
Right.
In terms of portion size or serving size and what that contains.
Exactly.
So before we get into that, I want to let people know what you do in terms of like what is biomedical nutrition.
Okay. So biomedical nutrition encompasses looking at a person's medical history. So you're really like a medical detective. You want to know why is this person experiencing these health issues, and you want to get to the root of the problem. And in order to do that, we use specialized laboratories that run functional medicine lab work. There's an institute of functional...
So biomedical nutrition is part of functional medicine.
Exactly. Okay. So if you wanted to look up what functional medicine is, there's an Institute of Functional Medicine that explains it. So conventional medicine may just say, well, what are your problems? Let me give something to alleviate those problems. Whereas functional medicine is saying, what is causing those problems? Let's really get down to what is the problem. Where's the imbalance? Do you have a deficiency in something? Is one of your organs not working, or your systems of detoxification, or your GI tract, or absorption, or digestion? And then how can we fix that through natural foods and natural supplements?
So by conventional medicine, you mean the allopathic
Exactly.
medicine.
So we complement, I feel that we should all work together. If the regular system is not giving you the information that you need to find out why do you have this problem, why do you have indigestion, why do you have acid reflux, why do you have high cholesterol when you eat really healthy? And then if you run certain functional medicine tests, we may determine, well, you can't break down fats, and you have a fatty acid oxidation issue. Because of that, you have high cholesterol. So now we're really getting to the root cause of this problem. And then we could give you a solution that works with that.
Yeah, I'm seeing so many ads on TV or even in print that is supposed to treat acidity or gassy, bloated stomachs. And I can't understand why people would have gassy, bloated stomachs or have so much of acidity. And then you have all of these medicines supposed to alleviate symptoms of allergies. They're not really trying to eliminate allergies, but they're trying to just treat. And I'm wondering, why are so many people sensitive to so many things now than ever before? And then again with migraines. I think a lot of people have these headaches and migraines, and it almost seems like an epidemic of all of these and all the medicines. And what conventional medicine is telling us to do is, okay, just treat the symptoms. Just take some medicine so you don't feel the headache. Take some medicine so your body doesn't react so much to all the, allergy-causing things that you're putting in your body.
Exactly.
Right?
So, and that's the problem. So we're not getting to the root of the problem. Is it that they're eating really unhealthy and that's causing inflammation? Or is it that they really have some indigestion and their Krebs cycle, their digestion cycle isn't working? So if it's not working, we want to pinpoint where it's not working. And then there are answers, and we know what to do. As opposed to taking medicine, we could give, if we need probiotics or a digestive enzyme, is it the protein group? Is it the fats that they can't break down? So that's where one becomes like a food detective or a medical detective, because we're really looking at all the clues that you gain in the medical history intake, as well as the specialized labs that are run.
And to be a practitioner in this field, what does one need to study?
Well, one needs to, in my case, it was nutrition. So you need your master's in nutrition and then further education in functional medicine. And then
How long is that course?
that could go from 2 to 4 years.
I see.
And it really specializes in, okay, so if this person has these health issues, these are the tests that one would recommend taking, and then how do you interpret the test? So anyone could, a medical doctor could actually run a test, but then can one interpret it? So how do you interpret it, and then how can you create a customized regimen for you? So say you come in and you have some health issues and you have acid reflux. So we want to find out, well, how's your digestion compared to someone else? And then we want to look at your food intake. So then we could create something specific for you, because we're all individual. We come into this world with a different genetic makeup.
How does this education differ from, being a dietitian? Even they call themselves nutritionists still.
Right. So a dietitian, they would not learn functional medicine, lab work. They may not even learn about food chemistry and what everything turns into. Like gluten has a problem for neuropeptides. So can someone break that down, or if someone can't, like special needs children would have a problem with that. So they learn, dietitians will be able to explain about the ratio of proteins and carbohydrates and fats and minerals. So that job is very well needed and necessary. But usually we don't learn about, or they don't learn about functional medicine and supplements and how it all interrelates.
Since now we already started talking about gluten, so maybe we'll just continue with the gluten as the first topic before we move on to the food labeling as such.
Okay.
So what do you have to say about people that cannot tolerate gluten, and why is that so?
Okay, so there's so many reasons why they could have celiac, or they could just have a gluten intolerance. So lots of time, I would say recommend a food elimination diet. So if you're suspecting you're getting bloated or migraines, or you feel fatigued or mentally foggy after you've had gluten, then eliminate it from your diet. You can take blood tests, but again, you want to go after specialized laboratories that are looking at food intolerances. Lots of conventional medicine look for anaphylactic reactions or celiac for malabsorption. And that's one category. But we have another category that's a food intolerance, so it's delayed. And it could be delayed from 20 minutes to 24 hours.
I see.
So it could be very confusing.
And people may not be able to relate whatever their discomfort to something they ate 24 hours ago or 20 hours ago. Okay.
That's where keeping a food journal is very helpful. And then also, saying what you ate, when you ate it, and how do you feel? Did anything change? And then do you have any signs physically? Do you have dark circles under your eyes? Do you feel fatigued? Is your skin dry? All these different things. Our body tries to give us signs.
And what are generally considered to be gluten-free food?
Well, gluten-free food is not always healthy food if it's processed. So if we talk about gluten-free healthy foods, then we could go after our fruits and vegetables. We could go after our protein, and the protein could either be animal protein or it could be, lentils, legumes, and that. As far
and then
as
among grains?
Gluten-free,
like whole grains?
So a gluten-free could be maize, which is corn. I wouldn't recommend that because it's an excitotoxin to our adrenal system.
And also we're going to talk later about the GMOs, so we'll get to that later.
Exactly. So when you go gluten-free, you want to look, well, what is it made of? Is it quinoa? That's okay, so is it quinoa? Can I break down quinoa? Then it would be good. Is it sorghum? What is it exactly? Is it a nut flour?
What about buckwheat?
Buckwheat sometimes causes excitotoxins in individuals. So this is where
What is that?
So excitotoxins would be where it could agitate you. If you have low B6 and vitamin C, that would balance out your dopamine, your serotonin. It wouldn't be good for you. So that's where we would see like executive ADD, or we would see it in children on the spectrum. So even though that's gluten-free. Now there are some theories out there that we shouldn't be having any grains, gluten-free or not. So then what does that leave us? That leaves us, again, going back to the way our ancestors ate.
You still have the vegetables, fruits,
and
other
protein
proteins.
sources. And that's
interesting.
fine. You know, if we keep our diet clean like that, we get away from all these problems.
With the ever-changing food labels, how is one to find out what exactly is in the product and how many calories are we consuming, and what is, per serving size? And very often on packages, that's not even mentioned very clearly. Or people find it difficult to multiply and divide in their minds.
Exactly. So I always call it's reading comprehension and it's math equations constantly when we eat a packaged product. So you want to look at serving size. That's so important.
Yeah.
Does it say 1 or does it say 4? Then you go to the calories. So if it says 4 in this serving and it's 200 calories, if you eat the entire package, what's inside of it, you have just got a 200 times 4, 800 calories. Whereas someone might say, oh, I just had 200 calories. Well, how much did you eat of it? I ate everything. Well,
the
no,
whole
you have to
package.
multiply. But not only do you have to multiply the calories, you have to multiply the sodium, the fat, the sugar, the carbohydrates. That's what's key. So one thing about our food labeling is understanding the comprehension and the math and saying how much and then timesing everything under it. The other thing is actually reading the ingredients. And I always say if you could pronounce it, if you could spell it and you know what it is, good. But if you can't say it and you don't know what it means, like dextrose, what is that? Do we know what that is? Why put it in your body if we don't know? And there's other words, artificial ingredients.
Some kind of a sugar, and people who have studied chemistry would know that.
Right, and then where is it sourced from? So dextrose, usually in the U.S., is either from rice or from corn. Is it genetically modified? Is it with rice? Does it have arsenic? Again, that's a packaged food.
About rice and arsenic, is that only in the United States, the rice from U.S. that seems to have arsenic?
Well, it's from the soil, so it really depends nowadays. And with the way the wind blows, we can put chemicals from one country to another. For instance, with Japan, with the radioaction, they saw that it then settled in San Francisco. So it's the soil and how it's been treated, and then what's in the air and in the environment. And they show that there's a lot of arsenic, and there's a lot of arsenic in apples too, organic or not. So we have to say, well, where's the tree? How is it grown? And how's the soil?
So how does one test for arsenic?
Well, the company should be checking. And you had asked, about how can we know?
Small farms can't test that.
It depends.
Or they should give it to a testing company to
Exactly.
get it checked.
Exactly. They should definitely check. And lots of supplements that contain rice do the checking. You have to call and inquire. So they might not necessarily, it depends on the labeling. If it's less than 2%, they may not put it on the label or in the disclaimer. So you would want to call. And you would want to find out what state it's grown in as well.
There's also a lot of confusion in terms of what is on the labels, in terms of even ingredients. Some companies, maybe they do not even list all of their real ingredients.
Well, natural flavoring is one of them.
So how does one go about finding out what's there?
You'd have to call. That's the only way to know. So if it says natural flavor, natural is the catch-all word that really scares one the most because what does it mean? It doesn't mean organic. It really, it doesn't say anything. It could actually have something from an artificial, but
and
is it a
people
natural?
assume it's from a natural source.
Right,
like
you don't know.
Food source.
It could be genetically modified natural flavoring. So you would really have to call the consumer, the 800 number, 888 number to find out.
When is it dangerous to just consume some product with natural flavoring, not knowing what is there? When is it dangerous?
It all goes back to the individual. Can the individual detoxify? How do their liver, pathway 1 and 2 work, and their kidneys? So all the filtering organs, they're supposed to detoxify this. So if I can't detoxify anything, then having that is going to accumulate in my body and then go into my tissues. So that's where we want to know, how does one function internally? Let's gain insight and then know. Because some people will say, well, that person eats horrible stuff all the time and nothing's ever wrong with them. Me, I have it one time, I get a migraine, I have this. Because we're different. So that's that answer could only be addressed if we know how the individual is detoxifying. But
yeah, we're going to
it
do
all
an entire
accumulates.
show on detoxifying, right?
Yes.
That I'm sure if viewers are interested, you should tune to next week. And again, we'll be doing detox and dieting exclusively. So continuing with the
Exactly.
food labels.
So the food labels, that's the biggest question that I get because we have organic. What does that mean? We have cage-free, we have free-range, we have natural, we have conventional, and then GMOs. So organic, if it's produce and it's USDA organic certificate, it has to be 100% organic. They have regulators. If one says that they are organic but there's no certificate, then you have to trust that farmer. And you have to really ask, well, what do you use? And do you have any documentation? Can I visit your farm?
When should a product be really labeled organic? What all does it go through and what does it not contain?
Well, if it's produce, they don't have the conventional pesticides. So they may use some natural, like a garlic spray. You know,
Okay.
what you want to know from them as well.
Neem spray or garlic
Exactly.
spray.
So that would be organic, but the seed is organic, so it's not genetically modified. So when you see some organic produce, you know it's not genetically
Oh, the
modified.
seed also has to be not genetically
It has
modified.
to be organic. If it says organic, the seed has to be organic, not genetically modified. The soil.
And not sprayed with insecticide
Exactly.
or pesticides.
And the soil it's grown in will not be contaminated with pesticides. So that has the highest level for produce. If we're talking about beauty products, that's a different story because if it says it's made with organic ingredients, it doesn't have to be 100%. It has to say 100%. Like some shampoos say organic and then you see 70% organic.
Oh, I see.
Well, I mean, that's still better than, you know, zero organic. But you have to be really astute on what all this means, and you have to read everything. So it's almost like we have to be so aware of these different labeling. And then we have free range. People will say, well, what's the difference between organic and free range, like for eggs or cage free? So that just means that both animals did not receive antibiotics or growth hormones. This one only ate, the organic only ate organic food, that animal, and then the free range, they were able to run around, but they didn't eat oral organic.
I see.
So the highest level
So
is
free range
organic.
doesn't really mean it's all organic.
No.
They have to know that it eats food that's not organic. It's only that it gets to roam around.
It gets to roam around, and actually there are some companies that are feeding their animals genetically modified.
Food.
So they are trying to clean that up and make it stricter. And then there's grass-fed, and so many people say I pay a premium for grass-fed animal protein. But I always say, well, why pay the premium? Get grass-finished. Grass-fed means that the animal ate grass somewhere.
In addition to all the other foods,
But,
which
well,
may or may not be.
Yeah, and at the end of
Organic.
their life, they usually pump them up with soy and corn. Grass-finished means the animal died with grass. That's
And
it.
nothing else.
Nothing
None
else.
of the other finishing material.
So if you're paying a premium, it should be grass-finished. And either one, they did not get antibiotics or growth hormones. We leave that to conventional. So conventional is where they're getting antibiotics, growth hormones.
Yeah.
And we don't know what they're eating. We don't know if they're caged.
So if it's organic,
terrible.
they should not be having
They
growth
shouldn't-
hormones
No
or
growth hormones.
antibiotics.
No
But
antibiotics.
then when animals get sick, you need to treat them with antibiotics.
And then they
all the
sell
time.
them to the other farm, secondary farm.
But then I'm thinking human beings take antibiotics all the time.
Well,
And that's how you're disease free. So for an animal, would that mean being disease free?
Well,
would be better?
so antibiotics help when we have a disease, right?
Not all the time.
Not all the time, and what it ends up doing is killing the good bacteria as well as
I
the bad
see.
bacteria, and that leads to candida overgrowth as well. So when we say they'll be healthy, like the animal may
So
be
for a
healthy
meat
for a
produce,
while.
it's not a good thing to have
No.
that.
And really, even for humans, we need to, when we're put on an antibiotic, we should really do certain protocols to counter the negative that comes along with it. So the positive is to get rid of the bacteria. But we also need for long term.
So when you're recovering, what should you do? after taking antibiotics?
You would want to take a high-quality probiotic, but they have to be spaced out 2 hours from the actual antibiotic.
Oh.
And then it's always good to have certain foods that are fermented, like your yogurt, your sauerkraut, those type of things to add in the good bacteria. And then garlic is great if one could have garlic, because that's antiviral, antibacterial.
What does farm to table mean? And is that all good food or not?
So that's a great question. Farm to table, we would assume it's all good, but that's only if you know the farm. So if the farm is being raised conventional, but it's a local farm and you feel like, well, it's great, it's local, this is good for the environment, but it may not necessarily be good for you because the animal could get antibiotics, growth hormones, and it could be loaded with pesticides. So again, you want to find out if the restaurant does farm to table, well, what farm? And there are certain restaurants that list it on the menu. We get our meats, we get our produce from these farms, and you could just call ahead of time and then check out the farm and call the farm. What do you do? What do you do when your animal is sick? Do you have a different protocol or regimen? And such same thing with farmers market. So now that spring, lots of farmers market come up, and does not always mean they are organic. That does not mean they're not genetically modified. So you have to ask the farmer at the farmer's market.
How do you check? Because farmers now have found out that when they're selling their summer produce, if they label it organic, then they can sell it for a lot higher price.
Right. So.
And how do you know that they really didn't use pesticide or other products?
Again, it goes back to their documentation. If they have the USDA label, then you know that's good. But if they don't, then either you have to take their word for it, or you have to go on their website, see who regulates them. Or if it's a local farm, you go visit them as well to see. And we've done that in the past. We've gone to farms and they show you everything, and they haven't gone for the USDA, but they're like, this is all we only feed our animals hay or grass, for their beef.
Now, from our health point of view, why should we worry about these pesticides and these antibiotics and the hormones in animals, or even in the GMO? Oh, we didn't talk about the GMO.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. GMOs is genetically modified organisms, so it's not even what nature intended it to be. It's made in the lab. It's injected with a toxin, so the pests will not eat them in the crop, but they will die if they eat them. But then we are able to ingest them. And there are human studies that show it changes our blood DNA. There's animal studies that show that it can affect our organs. It goes back to how your body's functioning. Can you handle it? How are you functioning? Can you detoxify?
So what happens with all these, the GMO foods and the foods with pesticides and other hormones?
So the foods with pesticides are going to be adding to your toxicity, right? And what's our threshold is everybody's different. Maybe mine is 10%, yours is 20%.
So they're all poisons of different ranges.
Right. And they are linked to degenerative diseases. That's one thing.
What kind of
cancers, ALS, MS. We see a lot of toxicity in those individuals when we do our testing.
Oh, what toxicity do you find?
We see arsenic, mercury, aluminum, and several others.
I see.
And
Some
then,
heavy metals?
And usually they cannot detoxify. And then if they can't detoxify, these terrible chemicals as well. There's a great book called Silent Spring that goes through the whole process of it back in 1964. And then, so that's one aspect. The other is antibiotics. And, in the Wall Street Journal, it said that now we're looking for the super antibiotic because when individuals need it, it's not working because they're getting it in their cheese and their butter and their yogurt and their ice cream and their milk and their meat every day. So now I have strep or I have MRSA or I have something really bad.
So the germs are getting stronger and stronger, resistant to these antibiotics.
And the FDA and the USDA are now telling cattle owners that they should not put antibiotics in the animals. They see the problem. So that just came out a few months ago. So that's a problem with that antibiotics. And genetically modified, there's no long-term study to show how it impacts our health as well.
The food industry is really big and very strong. They have a big lobby. you know. And a lot of laws are passed, regulations are passed, but then they're all in favor of those industries. Even whistleblowing is not even possible now. Nobody, even journalists complain that they cannot go and actually report about what is really going on behind the scenes at a farm.
Right.
And so they've grown. When such is the case, where we have a government that's passing laws and regulations in favor of all these big guys, how does the common consumer, protect himself or herself?
That's where we want to say buyer beware. Do your information. You have to be your own health advocate. You have to be educated on everything you put in your body. Call the companies, find out how they're sourcing it. Is it genetically modified?
So we have to really avoid and not buy these
Do
for
not buy
ourselves
them.
or for our children.
Because the major food companies are also adding non-GMO and organic lines as well, because they see they're losing money. So if we all boycott and just buy these other products, and also push your local government representatives to say, listen, for this state that I live in, I want to see what's in my food.
Yeah.
And also the food chains. So there are two major food chains that say in another year, they will say if the product is genetically modified.
Okay.
So the pressure is coming.
So right now it's not there in the labeling.
No, it's not unless they want to. It's not required.
I see.
But some companies are saying, we will put it there no matter what.
I feel, it's difficult for us to really pick out. Basically, processed foods, you can kind of assume that they're not organic unless they expressly give the labeling as organic. And since it causes so many health problems in people, I think people have to be aware of what's going on and what's in their food.
Exactly.
Right? But then organic food is getting very expensive.
Right. Well, we could find ways to make it cost effective. So if you like a particular food, then look at the local flyers of the stores, the stores with the flyers, see when it's on sale, buy in bulk. Go on Amazon, buy it on bulk there as well, and you
And
could
real
actually
organic
save
food.
money here and there.
Thank you very much, Nancy. We are out of time, I guess. We'll be reconvening here to talk about dieting and detoxing, right?
Yes.
And that's really good because we need to know how to detoxify our bodies. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember to tune in again next week in order to watch the detox program. Until next time, goodbye.